Welcome to Deep Look, Ultiworld's weekly podcast about the latest in the Ultimate World. I am the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me, Ultiworld senior editor Keith Rayner on this Tuesday, July 16th, following the Pro Elite challenges. Multiple challenges now, Keith. Can you catch them all?
We've got them split. we got the 2-pack, the twofer. But what that meant for us was lots of Ultimate. I mean, you really could basically spend the whole weekend watching high-level club Ultimate.
It's nice to have the split time zones because it's like you're kind of finishing up games on the East Coast as games are starting on the West Coast. So just keep the streams going all day long. But we got to get right to the biggest story of the weekend. The hat throw, Keith. Let's watch the clip right now. This is from the final of the mixed division at PEC East. Austin Disco Club taking on Philly Amp.
People may want to avert their eyes.
Oh. Ooh, a little extracurriculars. Chris Casella tries to lay out on an inside lane. Watch again here. No, nobody's home. Great fake. And he's got nothing. So what does he do? He throws his hat. And then Danielle Walsh comes in and gives him a little talking to, pulling off some nonsense right there. And we are going to be joined right now by Chris Casella. Chris, you're a cheater. You threw your hat, tried to knock the disc out of the air. You took a card and you got berated on the field. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, Keith, Charlie, long-time listener, first-time caller. Obviously would love to be here under some different circumstances, but I'm ready to accept the consequences of my actions. But yeah, thank you for having me on the program.
So I guess you have a little something prepared, we understand, to address the controversy here.
Yeah, that's right. I have prepared some notes. If you don't, I got my notes app up, so I took some time to write this out. Upset in the airport yesterday. So thanks for giving me this platform, and here we go. So I'd like to sincerely, wholeheartedly apologize for throwing my hat in a desperation attempt to get a goal line block. You know, folks, I'm not the young man I used to be 3 years ago playing college Ultimate, right? My back hurts. I make noises when I stand. I use coupons at the grocery store. We know too that, this game is changing. Athletes, we're getting faster. People are making a career out of this, dedicating countless hours to improving their game and posting on Twitter about their daily routines. I've been playing for years, many, many years. And throughout that time, I have picked up many, many defensive skills. We're going to talk about something today where, you're probably going to talk about the Heat. And Keith, you're a coach. And what do we tell players in drills? What do we tell players? When you get tired, you're going to regress back to your basics. You're going to fall into your fundamentals. And I remembered way back to my young days playing pickup Ultimate back in Connecticut. And when I was younger and tired and someone torched me or I got crossed up, did I make a bid? Did I get in good positions to make a play? No. I tried to hit the disc with my hat as a last-ditch effort to, get a block. Flash forward to 2024, playing in the finals of an elite tournament, and I fell back into my old ways. And look, I took my talking to and I got a card and I walked off, and I won't lie, I was a little bit worried about the consequences, but in the Bravo Machine semi, what happened? Bansfield got put on a t-shirt and Kins got like an AUDL TV deal and a podcast or something. So, that calmed me down a little bit. And, was it legal? No. Was it funny? It depends on who you ask. Has it set the legitimacy of the sport back? Potentially. And all this to say, I apologize. I'm listening and I'm ready to change.
I want to know what would happen. We appreciate your statement here. I want to know what would happen if you would hit the disc and it knocked it out of the sky. Is it a goal or does it have to go back? I think it has to go back.
I have heard that it is a goal. So this is Adam Goff, my old coach from Public Enemy, got on Twitter and pulled up a rule thing about how if offense threw it, it would go back. So, that classic play where the offender throws a hat at the disc. But yeah, I think on defense it ends up being a goal. And if I hit it, if I hit it, it would be bad. I think because I missed it, it was a little bit better.
Okay, so what did Danielle have to say to you in that moment?
Oh, it had been if you watched the game, it'd have been a pretty heated point. I think I said something about some different political nominees that should have been considered in an election because Pennsylvanians love their politics. If you look at my Twitter, I put that up there. But no, she was correct. I mean, she said, she gave me some 2 claps and she pointed at me and she said, "You can't do that." All records indicate that is correct. I am not allowed to do that. So, she wasn't wrong. But yeah, that's what she ended up saying to me. And then I talked about it with him after. I talked about it with the Spirit Captains after, just to make sure. I was like, clearly I was flailing. But yeah.
All right. Before we let you go, I want to ask you just a little bit about Austin Disco Club. Formerly Waterloo, coming in with the select flight status,
right.
But largely new players.
Yeah.
And you do lose to Slow 11-9 in pool play, but otherwise you win all your games. And you kind of kill everybody in the bracket. 15-7 over Shine, 10-7 over Noise, 12-6 over Amp to win the tournament. And you're missing, Kyle Henke and Claire Stewart and like some of your strongest players. How good is this team going to be?
Well, I mean, as it stands right now, missing 3 of our best players, we are good enough to win one of the elite tournaments in the club division for mixed. We are all very talented individual players, right? A lot of us haven't ended up playing together except for the group that was on Waterloo last year. I think there's about 7 or 8 players that have played mixed together. And then a lot of us are just kind of odds and ends, right? This is by no means our ceiling, which I think is the scary thing, right? We have the ability in the next month or so, in the next month and a half, to continue to get in shape, to work out our systems, to develop a culture that I think is something that will take us very, very far in a competitive region for mixed with the reigning national champions of Shame, right? So how good is this team? I mean, I think our ceiling is as high as a national title, and I think, our floor is anywhere in between there, right? I think we're very good, and I'm really happy that now we have made it out of the group chat, right, and into the mainstream, for lack of a better word.
Rico Johnson's in the YouTube chat. He said that tell you that you're lucky that he was out. I think he's saying that he would have thrown his hat and deflected your hat out of the air to defend the pass, I think is what he's getting at. But I like
I mean, he did come in the last 2 points of the game.
Okay.
So I don't know what he was doing for the first 10 when the score, was a little bit higher, but yeah, no, I mean, by all, again, Amp, a very literal group. If he was playing, there would have been different players in the game. So that is true. We'll give him that. Yeah.
All right, Chris. Well, congrats on the win. Will you throw your hat again this season, or have you learned your lesson?
To be determined. Depends whether it's going to be at someone else or it's going to be, it's going to be anywhere. But we'll see how it ends up working out. So stay tuned for maybe some more content. Hopefully some stuff looking just at Austin Disco Club and how we're going to really kind of shake up the division. So yeah.
All right. Well, I thought when I saw Austin Disco Club at Windmill that it was just like a little fun tournament. Like we're going to Windmill as this thing. But here we are, and you won the TCT event as the 13th seed. So interesting. Appreciate you coming on. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for bringing me on.
All right. Chris Casella, hat thrower, with us here on Deep Look. Keith, a very interesting weekend indeed. Is that the biggest story of the weekend? Not the hat, obviously. Austin winning in PEC East.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think that probably is the biggest result out of the 6 of the weekend. Disco Club. Hey, you mentioned starting out maybe they were having a fun team at in Europe, but I seem to remember a little team called Mixtape that started out as a summer league team and eventually became champs. So why can't Disco Club follow it in their path? And I was a little skeptical of some of the in-office hype after their results. I was on vacation, so I didn't get to see a lot. But reviewing some tape in the time after, there's really a pretty legit looking team out there. I mean, it doesn't look like a lack of sustainability or just like a hot weekend, or I don't think Amp played a particularly strong game in that final. So, take that for what it's worth. But I think it was a pretty impressive performance from Disco Club, mostly top to bottom. And if you give their one loss to Slow, and Slow didn't have a great weekend, but I think we were all pretty high on what Slow could do for the rest of the season. So there's no reason, I think, right now to cast doubt at Disco Club.
I mean, they're definitely going to be good enough to be a bracket team in nationals. I mean, I feel confident in saying that. I don't necessarily think this is a championship contender. That feels too early. There's a lot of teams that are still missing pieces, that are still kind of figuring things out. You have to be a little careful about over extrapolating tournament number 1 in July when many teams are not at full strength, which, to be fair, including Austin. So they should be getting better in theory. I definitely think they can be competitive. I am gonna just wait before I think that I'm gonna pick them over Shame to win South Central or something like that. I'm not going there.
And we know that South Central might be the most dangerous regionals of any, so it's hard to get too far out over your skis down there. Maybe because it's too hot, but it's you know that they're a dangerous team right now. I was impressed with Jamie Estes and Joey Wiley, and I think that they felt like they were missing a little bit of star power, and boom, the answer to that is the likes of Claire Stewart and Kyle Henke. So they have an interesting recipe to put together, and of all the divisions where we've seen teams newly formed that don't have a ton of deep bracket experience together, where we've seen those teams still manage to do well, it's been in the mixed division.
Cody Mills, FrisbeeRankings.com. Shout out. Already got some early rankings up. South Central looking at 3 bids at the moment with Disco Club, Public Enemy, and Shame all up in the top 14 at the moment. Northwest also looking really good. Red Flag, number 1 overall. BFG, and then Mixtape, all in the top 5, along with Moondog at 12. So Northwest got to be feeling pretty good as well, looking at the mixed side of things. Let's stay on PC East. What else stands out to you? We're already in mixed. Let's stay there. From this weekend, was Amp's demise written a little too soon?
It looks like it. I mean, this was honestly, aside from Disco Club, the second biggest story might be that Amp still looked the part. I think that it's easy to just look at the final and kind of they just didn't play a great game in that final, and they were missing people. But I think that they looked very strong. We know that the caliber of this tournament was higher than even usual. So I think you probably can put a little more stock in these results than you might typically in an early season tournament. But a very good showing for Amp, and I think shows the strength of the program that they were still able to go out and have a good weekend. I mean, I think looking at this roster and feeling like this team does not have the star power of years past, I think that's totally a legitimate position. But I also think that there are a lot of really talented players still on this roster. So I think if you were completely counting them out, that would be foolish. And I think they went out.
Are you concerned about hybrid losing in quarters?
No, not really. I mean, they lost a close game to Noise. It was obviously a really close matchup. They won all their pool play games against teams that also had pretty good tournaments. They played another team in the semifinals in Toro in their pool. So I think I'm not super concerned, especially this early in the season. I think I'm more looking for positive signs than I am worried about teams' negative signs, if that makes sense.
I completely agree. That's why I think Austin is the big story. And yeah, I mean, I still think like when we get down to it at nationals, hybrid is going to be a top 5 team. But they won all their games besides that 1 point loss to Noise. But
I mean, they haven't even always played well at the beginning of nationals.
That's a great point. There's just so much variance, it feels like, in mixed, from during the season and even at nationals. So let's move on. Let's take a look at the women's division. Scandal beats Phoenix 12-9 in the final. Phoenix getting a big blowout, 5-goal win over Brute Squad in semis and Scandal beating Sixers, who had a nice weekend, 12-8. Other notable score there, 14-12 Phoenix over Bent. An important early test for both of those teams. Scandal looked like the class of this tournament, Keith. Not a big surprise. I think perhaps more interesting is that Phoenix looks maybe better than we might have expected them to be at this point in the season.
Phoenix coming on strong, and that win over Brute Squad obviously is their marquee result. They also did take a loss to Sixers in pool play in a very close game on Saturday. So the weekend not without some things to work on, and in the final they were pretty competitive with Scandal. I mean, that game was pretty nip and tuck for most of the way until a run of breaks at the end from Scandal opened up a little bit. Cami Groom was a key figure, particularly on defense, although she also threw the turnover that led to one of their few breaks that they gave up in the first half. But Claire Trope was also obviously a important part of their team, and they were missing some folks as well. So I think that Scandal looked apart, but I think I was more impressed with what we saw from Phoenix, given what our expectations were coming into the season for them. I thought Teresa Yu in particular looked really strong. Dawn Colton obviously kind of made the leap last year, and looks like a star player still for them. But I thought Phoenix, Claire Bidiger-Kurz also played well in that final for them. But getting a good result against Scandal is something that we know that they're capable of. I think everybody's concerns about Phoenix are going to be what do they do in the crunch time. So losing in a final doesn't necessarily assuage your fears about that.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just so early. Like Phoenix is missing a bunch of key handlers. I don't know. It's hard to. I think it's a good sign that they did as well as they did. I think that projecting out into the future, I would probably have Scandal in a game at Nationals, maybe as a 1.5, maybe 2.5 point favorite. But I think Phoenix is capable of playing at this level. This, for me, raises their odds of being a semis team. Getting a win over Bent, that's a big early result. Brute Squad being bad early in the season means little to me, but I mean, a 5-goal win is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, outside of that game, I think Brute Squad being bad, like the rest of their results look like what you'd expect from a team that is a title contender, more or less. I mean, they had a closer than expected opener against Starling, but like they beat Sixers and Iris and Parcha all handily. Like I would say
I feel like
Phoenix they look stronger in the early season outside of that Phoenix game.
Yeah. Phoenix always seems to play up against Brute Squad. I mean, it just must be a good matchup for them. I mean, you remember back to the Nationals where those two teams faced off, and super close game there. I mean, obviously Brute, the much more decorated team in terms of titles, and we know that they can pull it together late in the season and really show up and play that super defensive game. But Phoenix does seem to play well against this Brute Squad team.
Yeah, and I think that we've got a nice contender tier right now, especially also with Sixers, who's a team that we didn't quite know what to expect from them. I think they were, kind of being written off as a ceiling of quarters team, and they also made some strides. So I think we've got a pretty competitive and interesting field in the women's division right now.
Obviously, it's very early. We don't have a lot of crossover yet, but Northeast got to be feeling pretty good. Brute Squad, Bent, Sixers, and Iris, who had a pretty nice weekend, 3-3 at PC East, all in the top 8 in the rankings right now, in the sort of projected rankings, giving the region 4 bids. Doesn't feel outlandish. I mean, if Iris continues to play like they did this weekend, I think that they're definitely a bid earning team.
Iris, I think the big difference maker there. I think you feel pretty confident about Brute, Sixers, and Bent being teams that are going to be able to earn a bid. But Iris with a really strong start to the season.
Other thoughts on PC Women's East?
I mean, I think Bent getting knocked out by Phoenix is kind of makes their weekend look worse because they didn't make semifinals. They also have a close win over Iris in consolation play. They didn't blow you away with their results, but again, not an early season situation where I'm not concerned about Bet.
And it's not like
Maybe a
14-12
slight
is,
cooling.
yeah, I think the hype maybe comes off a little bit. That was really their only tester game, was Phoenix. And otherwise they won all their games and they blew out the teams who were more middle of the pack. You worried about Nemesis? I mean, maybe this is just who they are now. They go 2-4. They get absolutely smoked by Sixers and Iris. They lose pretty big to Bent and Parcha. They beat Flight and Vengeance, not Nationals teams.
It just feels like they're maybe 2 tiers below a lot of those top contending teams. I'd say the same of Parcha, who has a similar kind of track record of being a team consistently good enough to get to Nationals, but not necessarily consistently good enough to beat those teams that are contending for semi spots. And Parcha's results look pretty similar on that front. They got creamed when they played against the elite teams. And so I think you're seeing a bit of a divide between those teams that are competing for semifinal spots and those teams that are fighting to get to Nationals.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk men's. Machine, Dig, your final. Machine gets an 11-8 win over Dig. Chain Lightning falling 13-9 to Machine in semis, and Dig getting a 15-12 win over Ring of Fire. I think those teams clearly separated themselves as the best. Chain beating Pony in quarters, 13-12, and a good one. A lot of close quarterfinals, in fact. You see, RDU hanging in there with Ring. Double Wide played a lot tougher with Dig than I expected. But, Machine and Dig, so much hype coming into the year. I think all justified, Keith. I mean, both teams missing key guys, and they still go to the finals.
And Dig looked like they were working on some new things, and they were good.
You like the super dump set that they've been running?
Ring. We'll see how it works. I haven't had enough chance to chew on enough film to say how I feel like it's impacting them. I think it led to one of their key breaks that they conceded to Machine when they got confused about exactly how to run it. But that's what the early season's for, is to work through some of that stuff. But I think it was part of what cost them that game, was that mistake in running that new reset system, where they're basically positioning one of their resets really far behind the disc, 15, 20 yards behind the disc. Maybe an effort to just create more space and feeling comfortable taking the loss of yards when they need to, or to let that player move forward to decrease the loss of yards and maybe pick up some momentum moving upfield. So it's interesting to see. I'm glad to see people experimenting when it feels like sometimes Ultimate can be kind of cookie cutter. So I'm glad to see teams are messing around with the formula and looking for new things to work on. But to see them get wins anyway, it's good.
Yeah, it's gonna be something to watch for sure. I mean, I think both those teams look really, really good.
Yes,
definitely in the contender for a title tier. No, I mean, not that we were surprised by that given the personnel, but Machine's got to feel pretty good. I mean, what's crazy is that they started the weekend almost losing to Blueprint, and then they end up, kind of rolling through the bracket, and they were without Joe White and some other key guys. Machine's ceiling obviously super, super high.
It definitely a team that to me is still the team I'm picking to win the title if I have to today.
Pony goes 3-0 on Saturday. And then they go 0-3 on Sunday, losing to Chain, Vault, and RDU. What the hell's going on with New York, Keith? This team maybe is good as last year's roster, but the top 15 on this team is still, we were talking last year about this being the greatest roster in club history, and then they totally flamed out.
I think that this is normal early season adjustment period, especially when you lost players that take up such a huge amount of your offensive driving force. You kind of have to take some time to recalibrate. So I'm not stressed about it. In fact, I think the fact that they went out and went 3-0 on day one is probably more meaningful to me than that they lost close games. Like, yeah, losing a Vault is a little
They beat
wonky.
GOAT, Garden State, and Double Wide. Do not try to get me hyped up about that.
Did this team lost to RDU last year around this time? Like, I'm just saying, it doesn't mean that they're bad.
Yeah, I feel like last year they
you had them in the back of
fewer
our
players.
top 10, and my opinion on that hasn't really changed. Is what I'm
saying. I suppose. I'm just like worried, like where the defense, I feel confident in. They have some tremendous defensive players. I like the options that they have, you know, like Jabron and Antoine out there on D. You know, there's plenty to like. But what's the O-line going to look like? I'm not sure that I'm sold on what's going on right now. Like, is Mickle still the guy you want to build an offense around at this point?
Does it feel
I think
like
it's a real question.
Is built around them? I don't know. I mean, he still is a singular thrower, right?
Yes, but I feel like you're giving up too much in every other element. Can he get open in the backfield? Can he play defense? Like, these are problems.
I think
he didn't make the national team, Keith. He did not make the national team.
Do they have some national team guy they're gonna parade in his place? I mean, I think that you're gonna see a lot of JR and Kocher. Like, I think those are guys. Yacht, Sam Little. Like, I think these are guys that you're going to be.
I am telling you, I understand. I agree. They have the pieces to build a great O-line, but it's not working this weekend.
I guess.
I don't know.
I know you're here to bury him or whatnot, but I just think this doesn't really change my opinion on them markedly.
Well, some stuff has to change our opinion a little bit, right? Like, if you're just going to wave it all off, then what's the point of like playing the games?
Well, I'll tell you what. How about Chain? This is a team that's interesting to me because they went 3-3, but they lose on double game point to Dig. They beat Pony on double game point, and then they lose by 4 to both Machine and Ring. And they were playing really shorthanded. I mean, they have like a roster of like 16 or something. No Brett Holzmeyer. This was not a team I thought had a particularly high ceiling coming into this year, and now I'm suddenly curious.
I think look, the Atlanta Hustle are the best team in the UFA right now. I didn't say it. I almost said it. I didn't say it.
No, don't push the buzzer.
And you know, they had to split their teams basically because the Hustle were playing doubleheader in Texas. They almost lost to Dallas, by the way. But you know, said some guys there. They had some guys at PEC, and yeah, I completely agreed. Like, they were competitive with these really strong teams. I definitely think they're an interesting team to keep an eye on this season. Like, they have a lot of players who could take the leap. You know, what do we see in the club season from Aiden Downey and Hayden Austin Nab? And like, a lot of these guys who are just coming out of college, obviously Holzmeyer could be an all-club player this year. Like, you can't rule that out. I think I wonder a little bit sometimes about like the handler side for them, but you know, they got good throwers. I just don't know if they're going to be able to put all the pieces together. But I mean, this has been the team for a couple of years, and I feel like they have higher ceiling each successive year because their youngest players are coming into the point where they can actually be like crunch time level contributors.
Yeah, and I think they're a team that's kind of gotten used to, you know, maybe running out guys that people don't talk about, you know, then getting success out of that. They kind of I wouldn't go so far as to say like a goon mentality, but like I think they like having a D line full of players who like didn't play at big time college programs, and they like feeling like people are overlooking them, and they're owning that, which I can appreciate. Also curious about double wide. I was definitely ready to write them off with what we saw from like Disco Club. You know, it felt like double wide's talent's been sapped a little bit, and they went 4-2. Both their losses close. They lose by 1 to Dig. You know, like this is actually a pretty impressive result for double wide.
The Xavier Fuzat hype is starting to really catch some serious steam. And Aaron Barcio, I mean, I don't know. They got some guys out there, Keith.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
There's intrigue.
You got to reset your expectations for who's good. Like,
yeah,
eras are shifting right now. So I definitely come away higher on double. I was ready for them to go like 1-5. And
Yeah.
they went 4-2, lost by 1 to Dig. You got to like that.
Yeah, they put together a strong resume. Speaking of,
All right.
do you want to head out west?
Not quite. First, I want to
Okay.
get the trivia question of the week.
I thought I could dip past you for the trivia there, but I got a little something for you. We're gonna play a little game, Charlie. We're gonna play Guess the Player. I'm gonna give you some biographical info about a player and their career, and we'll see how long it takes you to figure out which player I'm talking about. How do you feel about it?
I feel like this is going to be extremely challenging, but I will do my best. I play this in the New Yorker. Have you ever seen the New Yorker game where you have to guess the celebrity, and they give you
I have not.
I just get destroyed in that game. But this is probably I'm a little better at the Frisbee than I'm at the pop culture. So here we go.
All right. So this player is an alum of D3. They have one all club selection. They've played with two.
I'm gonna make a guess. Wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, never mind.
I'm
the person I was thinking of would not be playing in the women's division.
Okay, 2 women's division club teams in there.
Okay, so hang on. Let me think for a second. 1 all club selection, D3, correct. 2 women's teams.
Mm-hmm.
Tulsa Douglas.
It is not Tulsa Douglas.
Maybe she's only played with Brute, but maybe also doesn't have an all club. Hang on, let me think some more. All club women's division?
Correct.
Okay. Let me get one more clue.
Okay. This player, one of the 2 teams that this player has played for is Washington DC Scandal.
I'm not confident in my D3 knowledge. Tornquist went to Dartmouth. Does that count as D3? Not at the time.
It was not at the time, but it is a D3 team now.
That's my answer then.
It is not Caroline Tornquist. You ready for another hint?
God damn it. Yes.
Okay, so the other team that this player has played with, they've played for 7 seasons.
So wait a minute. I'm going to guess Lindsay Sue.
It is our very own editor, Lindsay Sue.
Wake
Forest.
Forest.
Have to get into that.
D3.
They played with Carolina Rain in the mixed division, as well as former player of the year. Which were
that's when it's.
That would have given it away. Yeah,
that would have been too easy. Okay, we got more of this.
No, just the one. This one. But if I wanted to experiment,
I like
this. If people like this, which the chat is getting into it, then we can bring.
We should do this every week. We should do this every week. It's not the trivia question of the week. It's a name that player.
Okay, I
can do some for you in the future.
Okay.
All right. Very good. Lindsay Sue, by the way, did not give me the answer in the chat, just to be clear. All right. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we will talk PEC West. We got to get you ready for the final week of the regular season of the Ultimate Frisbee Association. And we got some streaming coming up. Juniors, Masters, young and old. Double combo. We'll be right back.
Heads up, Breakmark now has sublimated 5-panel hat. You can get the hat and their famous reversible free with the purchase of one of their 3-piece team bundles, starting at just $85. Get all the details at breakmark.com.
All right, welcome back to Deep Look. Keith, I just want to point out, Caroline Tornquist was a really good guess. I checked. She has won an all-club award. She's played for 3 teams, including Scandal. And Dartmouth, we can call it close enough for a D3 team.
Yeah, there was a good guess. I applaud you. There were also guesses in the chat of Erica Bacon, Cami Groom. I don't think Cami Groom played D3, but we got the folks are engaged.
Tulsa Douglas. Okay, has Tulsa won an all club? Because then I would have had legitimately good guesses on all 3.
No,
because Tulsa has played for multiple teams. She has not gotten an all club selection. Fair enough. Okay, we can actually move on now. All right, PEC West, Corvallis, Oregon. By the way, interesting note, we didn't get to this. PEC East, hot, very hot. They moved games to 7:30 a.m. start on Sunday in order to play just 3 rounds and get everybody out of there by like noon. Do you like that
right now?
It is scorching hot right now.
We canceled Summer League.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yesterday, my kids'
99 degrees in New York City. School's closed?
Well, we don't. I think my kid's school doesn't have Miles' daycare doesn't have built-in like AC. I think so. They were like, it's really hot here, so it's recommended.
What kind of torture is that?
Send your kid in.
That's horrible.
I don't. It's weird to me being up here
for the kids.
Yeah, at least some fans. Like, come on, let's get it going.
My gosh. Yeah, no, it's way too hot today. It's been like all AC for like 72 hours straight in New York City. Corvallis, also pretty hot out there. And maybe not quite the same strength of field as the East tournament, but still strong. Where do you want to start, Keith? Pick a division.
Well, tough to pick because we got 2 great finals, the women's and mixed division finals. So which one do I think is the more interesting conversation? I think that you get, 2 of the teams that are expected to contend for a title in the women's division, but in the mixed division, it's hard to know exactly who's going to contend for a title. I think you got a pretty compelling set of results. But let's start in the women's division. We'll start there. I feel like Fury and Molly Brown have earned it, although BFG has done their part too.
All right, there it is. 14-12 Molly Brown over Fury to win as the 1 seed. Tight semifinal for Fury over Flipside, 15-12. A beatdown Molly Brown over Schwa, 14-9. We knew Molly was the favorite here, Keith. Break down the game for us. You already said it was a fantastic one. It was close late.
It wasn't. It wasn't always close in the game because it was a big game of runs. They come out they're pretty back and forth. Fury gets the first break. They go up 5-4. And then Molly Brown goes on a 6-1 run. And Fury comes right back with a 5-1 run of their own. So at that point, it's tied at 11-11. So we really then down the stretch, we got a very close game. We mentioned prior to the tournament, I think that no Valeria Cardenas for Molly Brown. So definitely both sides missing some players. Fury actually got a break chance to go up on that point at 11-11. But a reset mistake from Esther Filipek gave Molly Brown a short field hold. Olivia Goss, really nice grab in the deep space for Fury. But in the end, Nii Win gets the bookends for Colorado to get them the win. And I thought Claire Chastain looked really strong for Molly Brown. That's not news to anybody, but we're always talking about the other young players. It's maybe easy to forget about the stalwarts on this team. But Claire Chastain still looks like one of the best players in all of Ultimate. So that was I think a key part for Molly Brown in the win. But Fury team that I think had been disparaged, and here they are, and with a real chance to take a win over Molly Brown in the opener, and obviously got a quality win over Flipside in semis.
I mean, largely, I would say this tournament went mostly to expectations. I think Fury looked better than maybe we might have anticipated, but I am not surprised by the level of play from Fury. I think that it's easy to get lulled into the big names that you see missing and think, oh, they're going to take a big step back. But the whole thing about Fury is that they just have like wave after wave of great player, and like they just bring depth up, and then now they're the players we talk about. I mean, I still remember when Carolyn Finney made the World Games team, and we were like, what? And then it was like, oh no, she's just amazing. And maybe that's on us for not having recognized her talent earlier, but she was definitely a surprise at the time. And that just speaks to the Fury way, I think. But I also think it makes sense that they lost to Molly Brown, even without probably their best player in Valeria not there. Molly has that kind of ceiling.
Yeah, we knew Molly was a title contender through and through. I don't think there's anything they could have done. Well, maybe you seem ready to jump off the train of some teams. So maybe if they had bombed out and gone over this weekend, we'd be riding them. We'd be changing that tune. But hard to with the talent that's on the roster and the success we've seen from them in the past. So they were a title contender through and through, and for Fury to be neck and neck with them, as well as flip side, I think deserves notice for what they put together this
So does
weekend
Schwa.
as being another team that's in the semifinals conversation.
Yeah, I mean, so does Schwa. I mean, Schwa goes 1-1 with Flipside. Now, I think the 15-10 Flipside win in pool play is probably more meaningful to me than the 15-14 Schwa win in deep consolation. But I think Schwa outplayed my expectations. 15-11 over Traffic. Did you see that? I mean, maybe they were the favorite, but bigger wins than I expected. And they're clearly they're like in the quarters tier, way above a lot of the other teams that they played this weekend.
I picked the wrong Northwest team to back. Riot a less stellar weekend, although they lost to Flipside by 1, which is definitely their best result. Although you know what I say about your best result being a good loss, but they get beaten pretty handily by Traffic in both their matchups against those teams. So you're starting to build out your Northwest pecking order, and I definitely feel like Schwa and obviously Traffic and both head-to-head wins had stronger weekends than Riot, which was disappointing given that I was so hyped on this Riot team coming into the weekend. Also, a tough weekend for Pop. That was another team that I think there maybe was a little buzz that they could take some steps forward. I don't think anybody was expecting them necessarily to contend for semifinals, but they lose to Underground in pool play. So that was a tough loss for them, and
just generally
their
like
ranking situation is not in jeopardy, but
yeah,
not good.
The Midwest women's scene is not looking good right now. I mean, Nemesis Pop just kind of way off the pace. Shout out to Underground for making quarters as a 11 seed coming into the weekend. They beat that Pop team to get into that spot. I picked Molly Brown over Fury. That's the only nailed picks of the whole weekend, I think, for anybody. It was a little bit more surprises than we expected. I mean, but neither of us, just to run through our picks from East really quick, neither of us had any of the picks correct in the mixed division. We both I had Hybrid and Exist, you had Hybrid and Rally. You called Scandal winning. I had Dig and Machine in the final correctly, but I had Dig winning. I had Phoenix in the women's final. You had Scandal winning. I think I just said that. And so a little unpredictable in that way.
Yeah, we also got PC West men's. We both had the finalists right. I got the right winner. So there's some other results to crow about, but Molly Brown over Fury, good pick. I had Flipside, so I thought they'd be good, but not. They somehow even impressed me above, not above what would have been beating Molly Brown, but still an impressive weekend.
Well, you did mention the men's division, so let's go there. Rhino beats Revolver 13-11 in the final, capping off an undefeated weekend for Rhino. Pretty comfortable wins. I mean, they smoked Mallard and Condors, 2-goal win over Revolver, and they were not at full strength. They're missing some of their guys. I forget the full list of who was not there, but I know for sure that Matt Rader was not there. I think Freechild was not there. So you got to feel excited about Rhino's chances this season.
Yeah, but you put them in the contender class. I think that's about where they were going to go, and further adds to the kind of depth in the men's division of teams that I think could make a move to semifinals. I didn't get a ton of takeaways. It was a little bit of a sloppy game, but the thing that stood out to me is Micah Glass. He looks ready to take the leap. I mean, the guy looks like a elite club player, not someone I think is going to be in the all club conversation. I don't know if we will define him as able to break out at this point, but for such a young player to take on a big workload and look very comfortable doing it, I think is impressive for a team of this caliber. And on the flip side, Matt Hecht looked good for Revolver. He's kind of finding his footing. And I was just thinking about Simon Higgins, and I was like, is this guy like just did he get overlooked so in his like generation of players? Do we forget how good he can be? I don't know. He's real good.
He is really good. I have to say, I feel like Simon Higgins is like would be like an O-line starter for anybody, but never really was like the dude in a way that like Bo is the dude, or you name other big receivers. Really good player, like rock solid, happy to have him, but I just don't know that he ever was super elite. And that's probably why he got overlooked.
Yeah, he's like a Drew Holiday in the NBA, like borderline all-star.
Yes, that's right. I don't know. Did he ever win an all club? Speaking of that.
Let's see. All club for
I think he
Simon
did.
Higgins.
2016 second team.
He's had 2 second team selections.
And 2018 second team. So like, yeah. Very good.
Any other key takeaways for you from the men's division results?
Sockeye still question marks, but probably a nationals team. They lose by 1 to Condors, which that is not a good loss. But they did beat them in consolation 15-7. So maybe you chalk that up to like early season stuff. They played Revolver. They lost 14-11 in quarters. Was that quarters or semis? Might have been semis. I lost my page. I was literally on the screen. I should just look at the screen. 14-11 in semis. Thank you. Keith's just letting me dangle out here, die on my own, just not answering my question.
I thought you were asking yourself.
Revolver also missing some guys, by the way. Emmett's dropping the names in the chat. Raider, Ing, Freechild, and Strub.
No, that's the Rhino list. Revolver missing
Rhino list. Yeah. Revolver was out without Leo Gordon.
Adam Reese, who's like maybe their best player.
So, other thoughts? I mean, Oak Grove boys, like doing work for the East Coast. What the heck was this about? They come in as the 10 seed and they beat Furious and they play tight with Condors. I mean, this is going to pull points from the West Coast. Simple as that.
They play tight with everybody.
Team. People are wondering. They're from Virginia.
They didn't play a game with a final score margin larger than 3. They were in close games all weekend. But that Furious result is going to be the crown jewel of their performance. And this is a team that didn't do that well in their early season event, where they were doing some early season stuff. Somebody in our Discord.
Yeah, I mean, they got worked by a bunch of like, borderline bid earning teams like Blueprint and Garden State,
Sprout.
Yeah.
So this is definitely going to do favors for the Northeast. We may put a pin in this, because the Northeast, when they come home with 3, 4, 5 bids, you may be looking at this set of Oak Grove results.
You ready for the fact right now?
Yeah, but although there's a big asterisk, and not just an early season asterisk. So there's
6
literally
bids for the Northeast right now, Keith. 6 in the men's division after one weekend. Dig and Pony and Goat and Blueprint and Sprout and Phoenix, all inside the top 15.
It was pointed out, though, that specifically that there were some Northeast men's results or something that are not in the system correctly. So this is the results of all of them that I would take with the biggest grain of salt. Not to say that I don't think this is believable. I think this is very much possible for a region where there's been some more competition so far, and then you get results like this Oak Grove result that help. I don't find this like totally unbelievable. I'm just saying I wouldn't declare it so, because I don't know that this is fully complete information here.
If I had to bet today, I would bet on 4 bids for the Northeast.
That's probably where I'd land too.
But clearly it's in the possibility realm to get 5. I think 6 is not happening, but it's not crazy. I mean, look at right now. It's Southwest 1, South Central 1, North Central 1, but no Bravo yet, right? They haven't played, so they'll probably take a back end bid, probably from, well, right now it would be from Phoenix, so that would drop the Northeast to 5. But yeah, I mean, Southeast and Northwest big winners so far. RDU, I mean, getting that win over Pony again, like that might deliver them a bid again in 2024.
Yeah, could be a key result. Speaking of key results, I want to talk about this mixed division final, because you mentioned the Northwest and all Northwest in the PEC West mixed division final. BFG over Red Flag on Universe 12-11. A clash of 2 top 10 teams, a lot of returners in this matchup, and a little bit of a testy matchup. I think there's the familiarity also helped break some of the tension. There were some calls and some discussions, but also a lot of like high fives and stuff as people level heads prevailed. But a pretty good game, definitely one worth watching. A lot of holds, a lot of nice offensive possessions for teams, and so breaks were tough to come by. And Red Flag, a very strong result. I mean, this BFG team is one that was a part of that returning group of semifinalists that topped our power rankings to start the season. And Red Flag putting up a strong showing in competing with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great early result for Red Flag, I would say. I also think, Mischief, nice weekend. Generally, the Southwest, nice weekend. I think, BFG doing well, not surprising. Dragon Thrust, BFG. I mean, I know that in our Clubhouse chatter piece, Alex Rubin said that could be a national finals preview. And that's not crazy to think, given the hype that we've seen around these rosters. And, people are missing folks. There's a lot to see here still, but Dragon, big 15-10 win over Mixtape. I like what I've seen there, and Dragon does drop a game to Mischief, although they avenge it in Consolation.
Yeah, I think those teams, along with Red Flag, seem like the class of the tournament. Mischief, Dragon, Red Flag, and BFG. Red Flag absolutely rinsing Mixtape 15-4. Although that wasn't the seeding crossover round, I think. Yeah, there are some weird results in the seeding crossover games because I think some teams were not.
Red Flag just wanted to get Mixtape back for the WUCC game where they got rocked, I think maybe by that same scoreline. It might have been 15-4 in the World's final.
What I Red Flag, you see a lot of the same names, and when I watch them play, their offense is very centered around Gagan Chatha and Mika Kurahashi and William Vu. But I think that this was maybe a team that wasn't getting enough talk because there weren't a ton of big roster changes for them. It's not like there were a bunch of big names being added to the team. But you also have to remember that this team is like built around a core of players who were, I don't know, between 21 and 25. So there's a lot of just potential growth for them as they just develop these players. Avery Lee Pye just come off a great year with UBC. Eleanor Young is like maybe one of the vets on this team at this point. They have these young players who are going to get better. Mika Kurahashi is someone who made her name playing a league club in the mixed division with Red Flag. So I think that this is a team that is a sneaky semifinals team that we weren't talking about prior to this tournament.
What makes you feel like they're going to take a big step forward after last year, where they came in as the 11 seed to nationals? They went 1-2 in pool play. They beat Mixtape in pre-quarters and then got crushed by 7 by BFG.
Yeah, mean,
Like, why are they better
same,
now?
The same. They're
Young
just
players getting
those
good.
players getting better is what I
Yeah.
is those
All right.
young players who are like college aged, just continuing to improve. And they were not a team that I think looked totally out of place. Like they were able to compete with some of the top level teams. Look, you're flipping that BFG result around right now. Like that same team that crushed them, they're able to compete. Yes, it's early. We know that, but I think there's good signs for a red flag right now.
I mean, they have a lot of super talented, athletic young players. I mean, that's a great recipe for success. And we were expecting them to be a top level team last year, and it never really materialized. Maybe they just had to work through some kinks, and now we're going to see that team show up. Interesting weekend overall. I think no like truly shocking results, I would say, but definitely some teams doing better than expected. And the legacy of programs tends to have more weight than I think we sometimes give it. Teams like Fury and Double Wide, like sure they lose players, but they are still good.
Another team you may want to buy early on is Tower. They go on 1-1 in pool play and beat Love Tractor. They go 3-3 overall, but their losses came to Lawless, Red Flag, and BFG. BFG by just 1 goal, 4 to Red Flag. But those are strong like results. Those are good Nationals quality teams that they're taking
number
losses
6
to.
in the rankings.
Yeah, I think that if it's now's the time. If you want to buy in on Tower, this is probably the cheapest you're going to get it.
And they were also not at full strength. So, interesting weekend for sure. More to come. We do have select flight invites coming up at the end of the month, and then US Open just about 3 weeks away, when we're going to get to see crossover between the coasts and the very best teams going up against some national teams like Team Canada, Team Australia, and the men's division. Going to be a lot of fun, and we'll have even more coverage from US Open, 2 showcase games every round, commentated, extra game as well, every single round, 4 days of play once you include YCCs. So should be a blast. All right, let's get to quickly UFA end of regular season coming up this weekend. A lot of stuff on the line, Keith. You have a playoff spot up for grabs in the Central between Indy and Madison, pretty much winning in. You've got 1 seeds up for grabs in all of the other divisions. So Carolina and Atlanta are playing for the 1 seed in the South. Salt Lake and Seattle are playing for the 1 seed in the West. DC and New York are playing for, well, it's a little unclear still, but New York trying to get a big win in order to lock up the 2 seed, give themselves a shot at the 1 seed. DC with a win probably will get the 1 seed, unless Boston can go out and absolutely rock Montreal and Toronto. Remember, they almost lost to Montreal 2 weeks ago. So I would say, Boston probably still the favorite to get the 1 seed, because I do think New York is the favorite against DC at home. But lots up in the air, Keith, going into the final week of the season.
The league couldn't have scripted it better to get into week 13 and have all this drama, including some marquee matchups, and week 12 results help kind of set this up, with New York absolutely crushing. You get Indy with the crazy comeback to stay alive in the playoffs against Pittsburgh. You get Madison dogging Chicago. So there's a lot of compelling results, and then you get it. I don't know if it would have affected things, but you have Atlanta almost dropping that game to Dallas, trying to go blow for blow with Pittsburgh. So this should be interesting. I mean, what rank these 4 marquee games to you? You got Seattle and Salt Lake, Carolina and Atlanta.
In terms of their meaning,
DC,
or in terms of just how excited I am about them?
How excited you are. I want your personal excitement, and Indy at Madison.
DC, New York, number 1. Atlanta, Carolina, number 2. Salt Lake, Seattle, number 3. And then the Central game.
Just the Central Whoever's in it. I don't even
whatever.
care.
You get in, you're gonna lose to Minnesota. Whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting. The tough choice between the South and the East, I think, for the best matchup. New York seems to be really hitting their stride, and so that makes that compelling. But all three teams are in. Carolina and Atlanta obviously in, but this also is like this is the proving ground. I feel like if Atlanta loses this game, like their hopes of winning a title are basically kaput. I think.
Really? Even though they're still in the playoffs and they're still going to have another chance to beat Carolina
at home. Come on, you have to deliver. You got to show you can win the big games.
I agree with that, but this isn't the big game. This game is of moderate importance. Oh my gosh. This game is of moderate importance. The big game is in 3 weeks.
You want the bye. Come on. After what happened with Austin last year, yeah,
don't
make your bed. Yeah. Yeah.
Look, I just want to watch the best teams play, and DC and New York are top 3 teams in the league. I'm not sure Carolina is there for me anymore. But I get your point. It could be a great game.
Big East Coast biased from the New Yorker here. Okay, all right, we get it. No,
let me give you a stat. Let me give you a stat, okay? I've been working on prep for this NYDC game, which I'm producing this weekend. I got a stat for you. This is crazy.
Hit me.
Since 2021, UFA teams are a combined 83-5 in games in which the team records 10 turnovers or fewer. Okay? So just to reiterate, if you have 10 turnovers or fewer, record of those teams, 83-5 since 2021. 3 of those losses are DC losing to New York. The Breeze are 11-3 since 2021 in games in which they have 10 or fewer turnovers. This has been the best team that is not a championship weekend every year for like 3 or 4 years. And they're just blocked by New York. And it might happen again this year.
It's going to really sting if they get blocked by Boston. I don't even know which is worse. Getting blocked by New York again after they had their weakest season ever, or getting blocked by a different team. They're both the
Boston situation. They are everyone's overlooking them. But they have great stats this year. They've been when they're at full strength, they have not turned the disc over, and they have beaten the New York and DC.
Should be a good weekend in the UFA though.
All right, coming up this weekend, Masters Nationals out in Colorado. For the first time ever, it will be live streamed. Yes, you can tune in live with an Ultiworld subscription, and a standard sub will get you access to the Masters Nationals. We'll be streaming Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Got some big games and some great teams this year, Keith. I mean, the top end teams, it's starting to, look like, whoa, I feel like that's a regular club team.
Are we going to do our annual rite of making everybody, including ourselves, feel old by looking at people who are eligible to play Masters and be like, no way? Like, let's
do it.
People that I have coached play Masters now. Like, what's happening?
Let's look at some of the top seeds and rattle off some names. Number 1 seed in the men's division is Boneyard out of the Triangle. I mean, it looks like Ring from 5 years ago. Alan Laviolette, Brett Matsuka, Brian Casey, Delrico Johnson, Jared Inselman is still out there doing it. That's crazy. Josh Mullen, Noah Saul, Shane Sisco, Tristan Green. They are stacked and they play like year round. They're tough. Do you like them?
Yeah, there's
more
definitely
or less
names on
Voltron?
Here. Definitely some weird names to be in Masters on both of these rosters.
Here's Voltron. Just gonna rattle off some names: Andrew Hagan, Christian Foster, Danny Karlinski, Jay Clark, Mario O'Brien, Matt Rader, who by the way is Masters eligible this year for the first time. Morgan Hibbert, Nick Stewart, Simon Montague, Tom Doy, Will Chen. Team stacked.
I interesting question of who's the favorite between the two. I mean, I think the smart money's on Voltron, right?
I take Boneyard.
Okay, that makes you feel better.
Voltron pickup-y. Boneyard, like,
that's true.
Practice like a
that is
team.
True. That's fair counterpoint. Yeah, these rosters are both very good though.
How about Salt in the mixed division, number 1 seed? It's mixtape. Plus Mac Taylor. But yeah, I mean, Kelly Johnson, Cam Bailey, Kai Fong, Hannah Kawhi, Drew Johnson, Amy Kawhi, Mac Taylor, Carrie Chang. That's a throwback name for me. Paige Kircher, Brad Hauser. Like, this team's nasty. I feel like they are heavy favorites.
You got to feel like these people have played a lot together too. They look good, but take a look at that regret roster. There's essentially an elite club mixed team.
Is that a shame?
And it's shame. Shame basically just showing up to this tournament with Marilyn Reich and Sarah Ito and Jade McLaughlin. Yes, the like player of the year or whatever is just palling around in Masters.
Alex Daniels is Masters eligible. That is just messes me up, man. Alex Daniels was like 12 when I was playing in Albuquerque. I like cannot fathom that she's Masters eligible. But yeah, this is like legitimately Shame's roster.
Basically. Although I guess we just found Simon Montague elsewhere, but
they could win. Yes. They could win.
Me, those are the two favorites to me. I don't know why Dragon Rust is the 7 seed. I don't get that, but whatever.
How about women's division?
Taking a look at the women's division, I think that some of this will be familiar to you. Although this first name is a real bear as the 1 seed. Soar! ! Soar! One's SOAR and the other's that's a lot. That's a lot to put into a name. And this is like a Dallas team. So Jenna Bigby and Megan Tormey, Julie Malachek. They look pretty strong. You also look at the 2 seed is Stello, which is a Canadian group playing off of the Stella name, I believe. I'm not sure though if those top 2 seeds are the teams that to me are the favorite. I think I'd probably look at the next 2 teams, Ripe, which is the Carolina team, with Heather Zimmerman, Christine Bookout, and then PD Extra, the Portland team, also looks pretty strong. Emily Flanders on that squad, Kelly Cogburn. Yeah, they're Jenica Villamore. I don't know exactly. I think the women's division is probably the most open of any of them.
Weakest division. Like, you're not seeing like a stacked Fury team or something like that this year. We've seen that in the past, but not this year.
Is that because it's a World year? Like, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know what's up with that.
Part of it.
Usually we see like a Molly Brown team and a Fury team just like absolutely crush everybody.
Yeah, not happening this year. I think it's open. Also, juniors starting this weekend, Sunday, UK. So early. Set your clocks early, and that runs the whole week. So that starts Sunday through Saturday, and the best juniors players in the world. For our U.S. fans, most of the U.S. games will be streamed. So there's already a bunch on the schedule, and the mixed team is going to get plenty of love once they get to power pools. So you can follow the stories of the U.S. teams or the Canadian teams. Because it's a 7-day tournament, we got a lot of opportunity to show a lot of teams. So make sure to tune in. I'm super excited. We already previewed juniors last week, so you can check out our preview on last week's program. I think it's time for a question of the week, Keith. Let's go.
All right. This week's question of the week comes in from David. I'm just going to say David because I don't want to try and figure out how to pronounce how to pronounce his Discord name in the Discord. And he said when listening to the club preview, I was surprised at some of the players who you described as difference makers for teams, specifically about players at the end of their college careers, while dismissing some of the players who were college superstars a couple of years ago. Is this a what have you done lately? What have you done for me lately kind of issue or something else? How do you balance when you're talking about players who are stars? How do you balance their club, college, semi-pro performances? What gets the most weight for you?
Well, what gets the most weight is how a player is playing right now at a club or semi-pro level. I mean, that's the short answer. A great college player who's dominating in college, that's a data point, but it's very context dependent on like what is their role in college, what is their role in club, and how much of a standout are they in college. I think there are players who tend to maybe be more useful in club than in college because of the way that their style is. Like generally in college, you need to be a really strong thrower to be like a really useful college player. But in club, you can be a mediocre thrower and still be really effective if you're a great defender and a strong cutter. When you're thinking about stuff over time, I mean, sure, I do think there's maybe a tendency to kind of forget about players who are kind of in that middle tier, and focus on the players who have done something more explosive recently. But I don't know. I don't think we get it that wrong. Dismissing, so Dave's point is that we dismiss players who were college superstars a couple of years ago. Dismiss. I don't know if it's a dismissal. I think it's more about like acknowledging that players who are coming into the team are sort of more notable. But I don't think I would just say I would dismiss, right? Earlier today, right, mentioned Hayden Austin Knabb. I mean, he's only 2 years out of college, but like he's somebody who I think could like take a leap.
Well, I think, and maybe this comes from consuming, major professional sports as a fan. I do think that you, in those environments, you see young players and they have a lot of upside. Like they have a lot of ability for growth. While once you get a player who's, I don't know, 25, 26, you get the sense who they are. Like they're not going to change a lot as a player. And maybe tacking that onto Ultimate is not appropriate because players develop later. A lot of players are picking up the sport later in their lives. So their development curve pushes down. And the peak of an Ultimate player may not be at the elite club level when they're 25 or 26. It really may be when they're 29, 28, 29, when their mental and physical peak are kind of aligned, when their experience is built up. I think we've seen enough players be successful into and past that age that your ultimate prime maybe pushes down the line a little. But when you're looking at it in the typical sports fan context, you're thinking of these players who are coming out of college. They're 20, 21, 22, 23, or current college players who are coming into elite club. And it feels like they could change a lot. I do think there's some credence to that. So I think that when you see a player who maybe played an elite club year the year prior as a role player or a low end player on the roster, went back to college and was a star at college again, then those are the type of players who then come back to club and break out. Those are the players who take the leap. I was talking about Micah Glass earlier as an example. That's a player who I think is in position to take the leap. Emma Williamson with Molly Brown, a player who could take that leap at the elite club level. And we've seen them both play high level club in some degree and then go back to college, dominate, and then they come back to club and now they can really, really exert their will in the game, having learned the skills of being a dominant player, having added another year of seasoning. And for those players who are 3 or 4 years out of college, you do start to feel like, okay, I know who this player is. They're probably not going to change that much from when they're 24, 25, 26 to when they're 27, 28. Maybe that's wrong, but that is part of, I think, the calculus that leads to talking about these new players who are younger more than players who were in those same spots 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
The only thing I'll say is that the established stars who in many cases in the women's division are eligible to play in the Masters division because the cutoff is 30, which by the way is too low. We need to raise that limit. It's crazy. They are the best players for the most part. Like, I think you're seeing a peak play happening more in the like late 20s, early 30s, rather than those players who are coming in at the college level. I feel less like that in the men's division, but also the Masters cutoff is 33. At that point, you're probably not at your best anymore. There are exceptions.
Unless you're, I don't know, Josh Marquette.
That guy defies physics of time. All right. That's going to do it for today's show. Make sure you hit us a little like over there on the YouTube if you're watching us live every week, Tuesday, noon Eastern. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you listen to us on the pod, give us a little 5-star review or whatever the options are for you or wherever you listen to your podcasts. For Keith, I'm Charlie saying so long. We'll talk to you in the subscriber bonus segment out the back in Discord next. Vamos Argentina.